reps went in every day with an assessment of casualties and were made up from reports from all over this very large area. It is true that they were difficult to assess, but based on what one saw oneself, there's no reason to think that something of the order of 1 million men, women and children, civilians, was by no means unlikely. It's always been my own view, and one which I personally have not departed from.
It's impossible to conceive of 500,000 being slaughtered in that way. I just don't believe that, and I think it was, I would say, at the outside, the people involved in casualties, killed and wounded, would have been inside 250,000 inside.
How many people actually were killed since you were there at the body counter for the BBC?
I think the massacre total has been seriously underestimated. I know a figure of 250,000 has been suggested and almost officially accepted. It's a long time ago now, and I don't think I pain anybody by saying that that figure is seriously underestimated. I think it is certainly getting more towards 1 million. You couldn't make possibly an accurate account because these massacres were taking place in lonely places, in all sorts of villages, little towns, all through the Punjab and on the Sikhistan. Yes, I think I would go on record, stick my neck out and say nearly 1 million.
Killed?
Yes, I would say so.
Mountbatten wanted to be the head of state, the Governor-General of both the two new Commonwealth members, India and Pakistan. Nehru suggested it. Jinnah said no. So on August the 13th, the last Viceroy was in Karachi to see Jinnah installed as Pakistan's first Governor-General.
Muslims of India have shown to the world that they are a united nation, and their cause is just and righteous, which cannot be denied.
But the celebrations couldn't hide the reality. Lacking an army and civil service, even government files and typewriters, Pakistan began life with few tangible assets. While the crowds cheered in Karachi, no one will ever know whether Jinnah felt happy at the Pakistan he had created. But in India the following day, everyone was happy.
The scene in Delhi was typical of hundreds of towns throughout the vast territory that was about to become the Dominion of India. Cows, being held sacred by the Hindus, are never driven off the pavement, and all the familiar activities to be witnessed in this teeming city were being carried on as usual. But there was an undercurrent of pent-up excitement, for everyone knew that India, Hindustan India, was now to be free and independent.
Independence Night was superb. We came out onto the balcony of the Legislative Assembly and looked straight down this huge avenue that again Lutyens had planned for great state occasions. There must have been 1 million people there, no exaggeration. And there was a roar, a bubbling, a roar of utter happiness. And when the conch horn sounded and India was independent, that was the night, the very moment, 12 o'clock, midnight, a roar came from that crowd such I've never heard before. And I've heard great many rallies, great crowds. In fact, I was at the Nuremberg rally when Hitler appeared. This is a different roar. This is a roar of utter happiness, content, and never were the British more popular.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge, not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
I happened to be outside the Parliament House when Nehru made this famous Tryst with Destiny speech. It was an enormous crowd, and somehow one had forgotten all about what we'd been through in the killings and the riots all along. And one felt very elated. At long last, the country was free and we could manage our own affairs. It was next morning near Prince's Place where Mountbatten went in their horse-drawn carriage to the Red Fort. I couldn't believe the crowd took the horses away and dragged this carriage themselves, cheering the British, and very staid, stiff British officers in uniforms were lifted shoulder high and cheered. It seemed that 150 years of bitterness and all the anti-British feeling had totally vanished, and this nation become more pro-British than it had ever been since the British came.
I take the view that Mountbatten scuppered. He got all the British troops out without a single casualty, and Indians and Pakistanis murdered and butchered in the most cruel way. I think the withdrawal of British power was too sudden and rather selfish. So I do not admire either the dignity or the grace. It was very popular then. Mountbatten became an Indian hero. So I would say, yes, Mountbatten did a very good job for Britain, did a very lousy job for India.